Good evening, and welcome to the work session business meeting of April 10th, 2025, and I'm so excited to see so many people in the audience. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first on our agenda is the recognition of our PV Elementary School Student Science Fair projects and their high school student mentors. I have to say before they start, I have never been as impressed by student work as I was by the projects that you guys presented tonight. They were excellent. You used the scientific method. You started with a hypothesis. You explained your thinking. You answered questions, introduced yourself. The whole thing was excellent done. And the fourth grade should be proud. All right.
And their advisors.
And their advisors.
Yeah.
Did a great job.
Great topics, all of them.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, guys. First of all, I apologize. I know I didn't get to everyone's presentation, so I'll have Ms. Bross arrive. Scheduled private showings for any of the ones that I missed, so I'm sure we can make that happen. I know. He was very upset with me. All of a sudden, I turned around, everyone was gone. I'm like, where are they going? The meeting's starting. But I do have to say, this is actually one of my favorite events we do the entire year. And just knowing how much work goes into these projects, all of the students who started their projects, and especially those that are moving forward to a regional competition, I know you guys have continued to refine everything that you're doing and speak so eloquently about your presentation. Some of you, without even looking at the poster, were able to explain exactly what it was that was going on. I know we're often looking for high school physics teachers, so some of you I've already offered the job to. I know more about nuclear physics than most high school seniors as a fourth grader. So again, congratulations to all of you. It's wonderful to see all your families here and have everyone have the opportunity to see your hard work, which I know is only made possible thanks to your advisors. So I want to invite up Ms. Bross and Ms. Bruno. And we'll also have the opportunity to invite up some of your high school mentors who helped you guys throughout this process as well, because we want to recognize them, although I don't know how many of them are here right now, but we'll say their names anyway. So you guys want to say the names, or want me to? Okay. All right, you're going to hand them out?
Dr. Love?
Yes.
You're going to say each of the students' names?
Yes.
If they could just tell us the title of their project also, because I think people would be amazed at the variety and the focus of their work. Please.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
That means you guys got to talk too. I'll take the mic down to make it easier for you. All right, so in no particular order, our first presentation was James Delfico and Elena Fernandez. You guys want to tell them a little bit about what your project was about?
So our project was about the aerodynamics of rockets. We shot 3 rockets and we modified the rockets. So we had drag that we shaved the top of the rocket so the air could come around and they could go farther. And our control rocket, we had Elena's dad jump on it so the weight so the weight could go on the pusher so the rocket could go farther. And our last one is our weight. We put metal washers on the bottom to see if the rocket could go farther or less. And we found out that the drag was the farthest and the weight was the least.
Great job.
You guys can stay up here because we're going to take a picture of everyone. All right, so our next group was Sophia Wolf and Alessia Russo. Who wants to talk?
Our project was about what type of dance burns the most calories. We did 5 styles of dance: hip hop, tumbling, lyrical, jazz, and ballet. We did ballet, but we didn't have enough participants for ballet, so we took out ballet, and hip hop burns the most calories. But when we did do ballet burnt the most calories.
Thank you. I was very surprised that ballet burned the most calories, but I'm also not an avid ballet person, so. All right, our next group is Jaylene Vele and Brianna Giorgio.
So for my project, I was mummifying 3 fish. The species was red snapper, and the condiment we were using was salt, sugar, and baking soda. We used 3 containers, 3 fishes, and salt, sugar, baking soda. We did it for 8 weeks, and the best one that worked was baking soda because it dried out the fish the most.
And we'd like to thank their parents for letting them use the basement for the fish experiment.
And that fish goes home with. It's not a permanent fixture in the school district. All right, our next team is Emily Rund and Valentina Matthijs.
So we did our science project on pufferfish, and we wanted to figure out how they puffed up, and we figured out that they suck in water to tell how they puff up.
Thank you.
Thank you. I learned that some pufferfish don't puff, and dolphins like pufferfish to eat them. All right, our next is Amir Rafi.
So I did a project on making my chick hover, but at first I was gonna do my cat, but then my dad was like, "What do you think? Are you a moron? That thing's gonna take like 1,000 balloons."
Yep. That was on
So
the
then-
poster.
Since my baby chicks were lighter, I used that instead of a cat. And I knew this was gonna be a comedy show.
His chicks are now in therapy.
I was gonna say, I'm sure your parents appreciate the fact this is being live streamed to the whole world.
Make sure they sign that waiver.
Our next team, Michael D'Onofrio and Austin Flick. Whose presentation I didn't get to, so they're gonna have to do it again another time.
So our presentation was about the science of pitching and how the different grips affected a baseball's performance. So we found out that the 4-seam fastball, one of the most common grips, was the fastest with the least amount of movement. The 2-seam fastball was less fast and had the most movement, and the changeup was the slowest and had less movement. And then, so yeah.
You don't want to be the
Future
baseball
pitching-
team that goes up against them now.
As a
They
future
got it
pitching
figured out.
coaches for the New York Yankees. All right, our next presentation was Francis Rush. Would you like to sing something from the Jungle Book while you're here?
So my project was the double cone incline. It's in some rails on an incline, and it's something that rolls uphill in gravity, and I wanted to see how far it would go, and so yeah.
Thank you, sir. I have a feeling our next two presenters know each other. Reese Tosado and Evan Tosado.
Our project was about animation, and we did 2 types of animation, hand-drawn and stop motion. We actually had 2 questions about how the amount of frames per second would affect the smoothness of the animation, and how many frames in the animation would affect the smoothness of the animation. Well, we found out that the smoothness of the animation actually varies between different ones, but mostly 30 frames per second is the smoothest for that one, and 30 frames in total would be the smoothest too.
Impressive. Yusef Bayunis.
My project is called Salt Wars, and it's about salt crystals. So, my biggest salt crystals were made from magnesium sulfate, which had what I called like the ideal crystals. So, for halite or pink Himalayan rock salt, well, even though they make those big crystals in the mountains, somehow it made like little crystals on the side.
Next is Jacob McGann. As a former physics teacher, Jacob taught me a few things this evening, which was pretty impressive.
So my project was on nuclear fission, and I demonstrated that by putting mouse traps in a bin, and they all had ping pong balls on them, and the mouse traps were set. So I dropped a ping pong ball onto the mouse traps, and then that caused all of the mouse traps to start going crazy.
Next is Autumn Eltreche.
So my project was about how will salt change the freezing point of ice cream. So I made 2 different batches of ice cream, one with salt and ice and one without salt and ice, and I timed how long it took to freeze. So the one with ice and salt was faster. It took around 10 minutes, and the one without salt took around 20 minutes. Yeah.
Definitely.
Next is Evelyn Jackson.
My project is called Plant Power, and it's about which type of plant or vegetable makes the best writing ink, makes the best ink to write on seed paper.
Thank you. And Kelsey Fennell. Who I found out works with my sister-in-law at Gymnastics City.
So my project was on which gymnastics event increases your heart rate the most. I did vault, bars, beam, and floor, and I did each event 2 times, and floor increased your heart rate the most.
Thank you. So anyone who's looking to take up gymnastics, floor exercise burns the most calories, if you're interested. Our greatest heart rate. So I do want to thank our high school mentors. I think maybe some are here. So if you're here, please come up and be recognized. Asya Bayunis. Hi, George. Thank you. So Isabella Cui. Adeline Lysengang. Tina Nadru. Juliette Rugnieri. McKinley Scherf. Richard Steiner. And Julia Toth. So thank you all. Would you like to?
Just to say we're super proud of all of your kids. They do an amazing job. They're here for a reason. It's always about the journey for us, and they put in the time and the effort. And we're really proud of you, and you should be really proud of yourself, okay? You're going to rock Tri-County. No worries.
All right, so you guys want to come up here and take a picture so your parents can all take a picture? You'll line up in the front.
That's good, that's good.
Fantastic.
Stop there, huh?
Are we standing up?
Squish, squish, squish. Everyone squish. Squish.
Turn your awards around. There you go.
Just find your card.
Wait, one more.
Couple more years.
We'll give you a minute. I know some parents have to leave. We wish you'd stay, but we understand that you have to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So amazing. Best board meeting ever. This and the Haggerty board meetings are my favorite this year. The ones with the kids.
That's what it's about.
That is what it's about.
It is very exciting. Mr. Miller, you see what you got coming towards you? Very exciting. It's not that long. Only another 4 years and they'll be in the high school. You'll still be here.
Hint, hint. Great
Okay.
job, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. In front of the tiger in the hall is another great photo op place.
So I'd like to open it up for public comment on any of the listed agenda items.
Good evening. My name is Joe Ferraro. I've got two things. Number one, what you just saw is the reason why you vote yes on everything for the school. What you just saw, that's really important. And number two, there's been multiple presentations already of the budget that discussed that preschool was not part of the budget, that was coming back from the state, that aid. But I see on the agenda that there is a contract for preschool, and you don't have to answer it now. You can do it when you actually do the resolution, or whatever you want to do. It's your choice, your meeting. I just wonder if you could address if that's what we're talking about and if that's changing the state ed model, and then what the impact would be on the Department of Education and how that money does or does not funnel from the federal government to state to the districts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this year, like the previous 3 years, I believe, the district has issued an RFP, so a response for proposal, for a community-based organization to partner with us to offer pre-K services. The holdup has always been what's essentially a low per pupil expenditure that the state has allocated for school districts outside of New York City. So $5,400 a student is all we get back from that state through that state funding. And we've been unable until this year to find a willing partner that is willing to provide the service as outlined by the state in their regs for that amount of money. And we're thankful that this year we actually had a willing partner, the YMCA of Westchester, Northern Westchester, responded and is willing to do the work for that amount. They're actually well known in the region. They run pre-K services in many districts in our area. So many of the surrounding school districts in our region are using them to run their pre-K services. So for the first time in several years, we have a willing partner that's willing to do the work and not cost our taxpayers any money. The way it works is we get a per pupil expenditure back from the state. So that offsets the expense of the YMCA of running the program. So it's a net zero. It's not even part of our general fund budget because it's essentially grant funded. So the expenditures will be offset by the revenue dollar for dollar and has no impact on our operating budget. So we need to meet with them and have our kickoff meeting and figure out the logistics and the space and how many classrooms, and ultimately it'll be a lottery. So there'll be an application process. Anybody who's interested and has a 4-year-old next year will be able to enter the lottery. So it's totally at random. The students that are selected to participate in that program will be invited in, and it'll be free of charge because the state offsets that cost. There's always a worry of funding. We haven't heard anything about the funding going away. Doesn't mean that in the future it won't. But the model in which we have, unfortunately, if the funding goes away, the program would likely go away. It's not a program that's subsidized by the district, so it's not that something that we would necessarily have to continue we would have to start funding internally if the federal funding were to go away. So we're excited to offer it for the first year, and we know that the partner has lots of experience in this, so hopefully many in Putnam Valley will take advantage and at least apply for the lottery.
Where will it be housed, the program?
So the intention is to house the program in the modular building behind the elementary school.
I thought so. Good.
Yep.
Good.
So that'll be, we're not sure whether we'll run 1 or 2 classes. Part of that might depend upon the turnout or the number of applicants we receive. Mm-hmm. But certainly that space has the ability to run 2 classrooms. Assuming that the Y can staff those same 2 classrooms.
That's
outstanding.
Is that the space where Miss Bruno currently does her STEAM?
Yep, so it's currently the space where the Innovation Lab is, so if we do run 2 classrooms, we would find her a new space within the building itself. So
That
she
is
would still
so
end up with a
nice.
dedicated space. We would just
Beautiful building.
have to redesignate an existing classroom space within that building.
Okay.
You lost a couple of big classes.
Yeah.
And the district will not be providing transportation, correct?
No, there's no. So the way it works is they're not allowed to charge for before or after care. So many families, we have to work out the logistics of the day, but typically it would run from 9 to 2, 9:30 to 2:30. We want to figure out the logistics so it doesn't conflict with arrival and dismissal at the elementary school, because that's just a headache for parents. But parents will drop off and pick up. And if they need before or after care, they could look at one of our community-based daycare centers to provide that either before or after the pre-K day.
It's good news.
And registration for that will go through the district?
Yes. So for those interested, we'll do the application process. If they're selected, they'll come in for the registration process.
Got it.
And we'll do that way. So we actually have a call set up tomorrow with the neighboring district, and we're looking to plan a visit to another program that's run by the Y to get a sense as to how it all operates. But we're really trying to work quickly to get this process underway and get students selected, ready to go by the end of June.
And then just communicating with the community about how parents apply, and because it's a new
Yep.
thing, like what might that look like?
So we're talking about embedding it into our budget newsletter, which goes out to all of the households. So that's our largest reach. And then on top of that, just to utilize the electronic newsletters, social media, any avenue we can to make sure the word gets out to the community.
Amazing. That's wonderful.
Anything else? Did I forget anything? You go.
You know, this is fantastic news for the district. You might want to contact Eric Gross and see if we can't get a print up in the PCNR and maybe do one of those Eric Gross interviews, Dr. Luff, about this program. Because
Typically, Eric calls me and asks me to.
What's that?
I said typically Eric calls me first. Yes, I'm sure we can
Because
get something together.
a lot
We
of
always do
people
something
will
leading
follow
up to the budget anyway, so we can just make it part of that.
Good.
Inside Putnam Valley Schools.
Great.
Okay, no other public comments. I'd like to move to the consent agenda.
Okay. Resolved to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 10, as presented to the board at this meeting.
Second?
Questions or comments?
The consent agenda includes approval of minutes, approval of an updated substitute listing, additional and unpaid hours for various staff members, approval of the CSE, CPSE placements, authorizing the superintendent of schools to enter into salary letters of agreement for the upcoming school year, approving entering into contracts with Katona for health and welfare, Manhattanville for teaching assistants, and Treb Audio, which provides AV installation and maintenance needs. We're accepting a donation of $75 from the Deanna Bell family for the John Kleiniger Scholarship Account. We're amending the civil service status of a staff member who's going from provisional to a probationary appointment after successful completion of the necessary examination. We're adopting the 25-26 Board of Education meeting dates.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes. We don't have a student representative tonight, so Dr. Luff, they can't steal your thunder. You're on.
All right, so good evening again. I did want to quickly address, I know there was an incident here at the high school, which I know our administration and the Putnam County Sheriff's Office quickly investigated. It ended up being no real threat made to anyone or to the school district, but I do want to just sort of recognize how quickly misinformation can spread, and what ended up being unfounded quickly spread throughout various channels and really caused a great deal of concern and some chaos in what was really a bad game of telephone, to summarize everything that had happened. But I did want to recognize the efforts of our administrators and the partnership we have with the Sheriff's Department to quickly dispel any of the fears or rumors that were out there and quickly spreading throughout the community. I know several communications went out, and we did our best to keep parents informed as we ourselves were trying to determine what was founded versus not. Right before this meeting, we had our financial subcommittee meeting as well as our communications subcommittee meeting. Those are spin-offs of the larger district facilities planning committee, and we talked a lot about how to get accurate and timely information out to our community, finding a balance between both reactive communications in terms of dispelling the misinformation that's out in the community, as well as proactive communications, how we can get out in front and ensure that people have accurate information before casting a ballot on May 20th. And that'll be both for our budget, our bond, the library, as well as board trustees. We had our superintendent's conference day. I want to congratulate Jackie, who did a tremendous job organizing the day. I think it's the most positive feedback we have ever received from our staff regarding a whole group assembly who had gathered together. And really the feedback was terrific, to the point where I think we will look to bring the speaker back again to do some follow-up work with our staff. We had our IB verification visit to the middle school, so we had 2 visitors who come in. Just a point of reference, the last time the high school had their recertification, the 2 visitors came from Quebec and the U.S. Virgin For the middle school, they came from Brooklyn and Rochester. So I don't know how he ended up with 2 people from New York, but it was helpful that they knew their region. They knew the area. In fact, one of them taught Molly St. Thomas in 10th grade English, which I found ironic. So Molly was a teacher who was with us last year. So the feedback was extraordinarily positive. I do want to congratulate efforts of Jackie, of Travis and Jamie, and especially the efforts of our coordinators, Mary Kay and Stephanie at the middle school. They did a fantastic job. I know that the visitors were impressed throughout the process, really getting a sense as to the amount of work that's gone in to building the program up and the commitment that the district has to sustain that program moving forward. So I want to thank everyone. I know board members, administrators, parents, students, everyone was involved in that visitation process. So thank everyone for their participation. The high school, Julia DeMichael, was selected to represent our school of Section 1, New York State Public High School Athletic Association Student Leadership Conference in Albany on April 3rd. I know our students hosted a wellness fair here at the Wellness Center, and I got a chance to stop in to our physics class this afternoon to hear an astronaut talk about his experience in the International Space Station. I learned that he was scheduled to be there for 6 months, but after a faulty cooling leak, he ended up spending a full year on the International Space Station. Not to judge physics teachers or physics majors, because I am one, but this guy was very articulate, very well spoken, related to the students. I was really impressed in his ability to gain the attention of high school students and maintain it and really keep them engaged throughout the process. So there was a ton of questions, and I thought it was a really cool experience for our students. So I'd like to thank Ms. Graham for making that possible for our students. In a little bit, I'm going to give an update on the high school class of 2025 graduation ceremony. So Mr. Mello is here this evening to help answer any questions, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Our middle school had their School of Rock performances. I had the opportunity to attend one of the dress rehearsals. It was awesome. If you've seen the movie School of Rock, it literally follows the storyline verbatim. If you've never seen the story, you were probably very confused. But I was very impressed. I love seeing students that seem so out of their element to me, whether they be musicians or athletes or academics, that to see them up on stage and acting and just seeing a whole new side of them is something that I greatly appreciate. Our elementary school held their 3rd grade recorder concert, which I unfortunately missed, but I heard it was outstanding, and a huge compliment to Ben in his work in his first year here in Putnam Valley. We are nearing the completion of some hiring, so we're looking to hire our next supervisor of special education as Melissa Estrella moves up to the director's role. And we still have open positions for account clerk and middle school computer specialist, if anyone out there is interested. And some upcoming events. We have our budget and capital project, more Q&As coming up. The PTA is hosting a Q&A on April 23rd, and the Putnam Valley Education Foundation is hosting a Q&A coffee in the Putnam Valley Library on April 30th. And we spoke a little bit about the Universal Pre-K bid opening. And just a reminder, next week is spring recess from Monday, April 14th through Monday, April 21st. And one upcoming event, we have another board meeting before this, but I do want to remind everyone of the upcoming TheaterWorks performance of Legally Blonde, especially the Saturday community potluck before the show, as well as the senior citizen production put on Thursday, April 24th at 3:30 p.m. Free to all seniors in the community.
Thank you.
Me again? Tired of listening to myself. All right, this is not so much a presentation as is a couple pictures. But I know there's been a lot of conversation out in the community regarding the upcoming graduation. I want to be clear to say there was talks about a survey and asking everyone where they would like to have the graduation. I just want to be clear that if I voted on a survey, I would pick the turf, because that's where I would want to have the graduation too. Now, unfortunately, that's not a realistic option for this class. But we have spent a considerable amount of time talking with students, parents, staff, administrators, our technology department, custodians, grounds crew, among others, receiving feedback regarding how we can best acknowledge the class of 2025. Some of the many items we considered throughout those meetings were considering date changes, changing the location, changing how we run the processional in and out of the graduation, the landscape for pictures, athletic conflicts, scope of the work that needs to be accomplished, including replacement of the track, which is something that could not be done over the winter, construction timeline, handicap accessibility, our ability to live feed this both indoor and out to the internet, inclement weather plans, as well as seating capacity. One thing that came through time and time again was that the preference was to host this outdoors, and they wanted an outdoor option. The turf no longer being an option, the students, when Mr. Mello met with the students, they quickly shot down many of the options we had presented in terms of changing locations. They had no interest in changing the date. They had no interest in cutting out a piece of the turf and moving the turf. They had no interest in. Most of their conversations focused around not doing the things that their parents wanted them to do, which we found ironic. But really, they wanted to be together, and they wanted an opportunity to be acknowledged and to celebrate together, and that's what really mattered most to them. But certainly, the preference was to have it outside. So that really started a conversation regarding the feasibility of using the baseball field, and that ultimately becoming the best option. You could excuse my lack of graphic artistic skills here, but so what this is just simply a screenshot of Google Earth. And this shows the outfield of the baseball field, where we would propose putting down the same plastic flooring that we utilize on the turf. We would also create some sort of plastic walkway so the students could walk during the processional out to the seating area without high heels sinking into the grass. On the bottom of the hill, we would look to have parent bleachers. So we would ensure we had seating for at least 2 parents for each of our graduates at the bottom of the hill. So approximately 140 graduates, so we would make sure we had at least 280 seats there. Those bleachers would be rented. So we would rent them from a company who would come install them, set them up, and then take them down after completion of the event. Unfortunately, if it rains, that's a significant expense that the district's going to expend and not utilize. On the top of the hill is another flat area. We would be able to put additional bleachers up there. So we're still exploring the ability to utilize bleachers we have on site, possibly utilizing bleachers that are available at the town park, just to create sort of an overflow area on top of the hill. Obviously, this angle here is meant to show it's a pretty steep hill on the way down. While we don't expect anyone to sit on the hill, nobody's expected to bring a beach chair or a blanket and sit on the hill. It's still an option if someone decided to. They would be able to sit on the hill and be unobstructed from either the parent bleachers or the bleachers on top of the hill. So just another angle showing it really is a kind of natural viewscape for parents and for the bleachers to be able to clearly see the whole student seating area. So regardless of where the student was seated, parents would have the ability to clearly see them, which was something that I know came up time and time again, was parents wanted to be able to view their children, whether they were in the front row or the back row. And the last angle really shows, it's actually a very picturesque landscape out there in terms of you'll see the sunset from there, you'll see the hills from there. I'm teasing, I'm going to auction off Ms. Zecca's luxury suite. Ms. Zecca's office has the most beautiful view on campus. It overlooks that exact area. So if anybody wants to chip in for a luxury suite, I'm sure we can come up with some more doors or something. You could watch right out the window, it'd be perfect. But again, this is another angle of showing really what the landscape can look like for the outdoor graduation. So we think that this is our best solution for an outdoor proposal. So we would go with this as our primary option. Obviously, weather, as always, is a concern. More so with this setup than even on the turf. A substantial rain the day before or days before could significantly impact our ability to have this. But if it's a beautiful sunny day, we would obviously do everything in our power to hold this outside. If the weather does force us inside, like has happened the last 2 years, the PAC is still available on that day because this is our original graduation scheduled date. So the PAC would be an option. Unfortunately, the PAC would be the option as it has been in the past, where the students all seated on the stage. There would be no risers for the inside option if we're forced inside, because really the district would be making a significant investment to the outdoor graduation space between the plastic flooring for the students, the chair rentals, as well as the bleacher rentals. Did I leave anything out? Sounds great.
Dr. Luft, the students would get to the student seating via the gym as they always did and just cut right to the student seating?
So we haven't worked out, come on up. We haven't worked out the full details for it, but I know that Mr. Mello has some ideas regarding the processional.
We're going to try and use parachutes this year and just kind of drop them all in. We think that would be a much more exciting effect, especially if we have fireworks going off in the background too. But no, I think one of the things that the parents talked about is they love that procession down the hill towards the turf. And because we have the stairs there, one of the things that we're throwing around is that the students kind of go through the front of the building, walk around the building, and then come down the stairs.
Down the stairs.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, the stairs, down the exterior stairs.
Right.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't come out of in the past, we used to, do the photographs and stuff and bring them out the gym, up the stairs, and then around. You would have them come out the front, down the stairs, then to the seat.
Exactly. So they can
Okay.
still see this procession coming down
Yeah.
towards where the graduation is. I think that's, we could always have them just come out of the wellness center. But I think if we talk about parents wanting to see a procession, we
Yeah.
definitely have a way that we can do that.
Okay. Good, thank you.
One other thing I'll throw in there, I don't want to jinx anything, but why is there no positive jinxes? It's always a negative jinx. There's no positive jinxes. That really bothers me. But anyway, if we did have to move it indoors, whenever we've had to move it indoors in the past, it's been like a last minute, let's go indoors. And there really hasn't been any thought put into, okay, when it's over, what happens next? So we've been spending a lot of time trying to craft an idea of how the end of the ceremony wraps up, where we'd bring everybody to like the wellness center. We could have things set up in the wellness center for photographs and things like that. And we could also set up stuff outside if it ended up being nicer out, like in the courtyard and things like that. So we're planning more for the end of the ceremony. In the past, it's been like, ceremony's over,
Right.
and you have 1,000 people in the main hall, all moving, 1 inch an hour to try and get out of that space. So there's more thought going into, if it had to be moved indoors, how we make that more special for all those families.
Keep our fingers crossed that the weather is good then, at that time.
I've had 3 kids graduate, 2 of them been indoors. So
Yeah, I know.
my percentage is terrible.
So I just want to clarify, there's more, you had mentioned 2 tickets per parents downstairs, or down the bottom bleachers, but there's more, they will receive more than 2 tickets. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, we can still issue the same 6 tickets that we've always issued. Always when it's been outdoors, anybody can show up. It's just that outdoors on the bleachers, if it's on the turf, we can accommodate 6 tickets per family on the bleachers. Other family, friends can show up and stand all around. The similar situation will happen here, where we'll have the parents being able to sit on the bleachers. We'll have other bleachers up top, but I think anybody could come in. We'll try and use some of that fencing that the baseball uses for the home run fence for a baseball. We'll try and use that to kind of like section off the field where the students are going to be, but that will allow more people to show up and be a part of the ceremony.
And it'll be handicap accessible somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, all of that is handicap accessible as it is right now. Even if, somebody need to come into the high school, take the elevator down to the first floor and head out, on the blacktop to the bleachers, or if they were to show up, we could always still bring them down and around by the turf field, and down that blacktop walkway to that area as well. So we have two different ways to get anybody that's handicapped to the bottom of the hill, and it's obvious, it's easy to get people to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
Mr. Mello, do the students know about this plan?
So, like, when I met with the students, they were the ones that really were like, what about this? What about this? What about Lakeland High School? What about, what about the town park? What about the baseball field? And, it really was from them that we started to focus more on the baseball field. So, do all the students know about it? No. But it was definitely something that was talked about with a whole group of students. They tend to be very active on social media. I don't know if you know that, but texting, group chat, social media, they tend to be pretty active there. I didn't want to sit there and say, like, this is what we're doing when I don't make the final decision. The Board of Ed makes the final decision. But as soon as that decision's made, we'll run with it. I think they'd be very excited about it.
The bottom line is that it satisfies, the needs that I've read on social media, and that is it's here, it's on the same date, it's outside, and the seating and the procession will be all intact, and the parents are on risers. That was a big concern. They want to be able to look down and see their children. So this satisfies everything. We're simply moving from the turf to the next field over. Here, same date, same location. So I think it's outstanding.
And I have to say, what I love about this plan is that, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the idea of the baseball field came from the kids.
Yeah.
This is their day.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that it came from them. They had a voice in the decision and in the ideas. And to your point, I do think that the other population we need to care about are those families that have been looking forward to this day since the moment their child was born, and it does check most of the boxes. So I think this is a really great solution. Thank you so much for taking the time to figure this out.
I think this is a great solution, really.
I know Aiden Cassidy's not here tonight, but I mean, Aiden was he was just awesome. Talking about, to us, to the other students, really like a motivating factor behind moving to, the baseball field and utilizing that space as a graduation space. But I gotta say, it was like, students, what do you want to do? I'll go anywhere, wherever you want to go and have the graduation, I'll go do it, and they were the ones that kind of brainstorming and, settled on like the baseball field. They talked about the town park, but logistically it's a little bit more difficult at the town park. Yeah. This, definitely not as difficult, right? Because when we talk about sound, Mr. Mahoney could talk about like setting up cameras and everything for a live stream. If it's here, it's so much easier than if he had to, take everything.
Really long wires.
They also went to school here, so it's nice that we can do it on the campus.
Absolutely.
Attended.
Yep.
It's great.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
and
you. Thank you,
I'd
Mrs.
like
Mello.
the seniors to know there was a parent that spoke, and I think it really touched Aiden about, one of your legacies that you can leave to Putnam Valley is the grace of recognizing that to have it on the turf field would impact next year's sports and athletes. And sometimes we don't always get exactly what we want, but sometimes that's also a gift. So I'm glad. Thank you.
One thing I've learned over the years of, working in education, kids are really resilient, and they make the best out of everything. One of the suggestions that came up was like a senior sunrise, senior sunset for the seniors where, they could put their gowns on, and when the turf was still there, and I mentioned that to the seniors, and the groans, they're out of their mind. Like, none of them really wanted to take part in it. It's just so our parents can take pictures, So I found that was like really interesting. We'll do it, we'll do whatever. We can do a senior sunset if, that's what the students want to do. But I love listening to the students. I think they're really intelligent people. They're motivated, and they're willing to work and look at, for solutions that will work for everybody. So I commend them.
Good. Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. Great solution.
I think one of the themes that came up when Mr. Mello met with the students was that they were not interested in displacing their junior fellow students off the, you know what I mean? They understood if we pushed the project back, the impact it would have on the juniors. And that was something they were not interested in, right? They didn't want that to be their legacy of causing others to lose an opportunity to play home games for fall sports and things like that. So the students really get it, and they're quick to realize they don't want their graduation ceremony to then have a negative impact on someone else. They were also very quick. They were not interested in moving it into May, which was the other object. They run the risk of conflicting with athletics, the notion of having a classmate unable or forced to choose between a sectional baseball game and graduation. The fact that Mr. Mello explained to them that they were still expected to come to school for the next few weeks, that they didn't want to graduate and then have to come back to class. They had no interest in that.
There's a lot of truth to that.
And also, they ultimately made the decision that it was best to stick with the date, and that's what started the conversations around alternative locations and other place we can hold it on campus. And that's when the baseball field conversation started to take off. So Mr. Mello and I have really been running with that. And that's at this point what I plan to recommend to the board. It doesn't require a date change. We have heard from families who have family members flying in or traveling in. So the thought of changing the date for them was catastrophic. So obviously this is the date that's been out there. It's the date that's been planned for. We know that the fallback plan of the PAC is available. As Mr. Mello said, we could certainly make that better if we are forced indoors. But outdoor on campus was the resounding ask, and this is the way we think we could best accomplish that, both of those things. Hosting it on school grounds and providing an outdoor location.
Just something to think about to that end of family members flying in. The worst news could be, oh, I have all of this family flying in. I had tickets for them, but now we're moving it into the PAC because of rain, and these people who flew in now cannot come, or I have to give them my ticket as a parent. So I know that we had some sort of overflow room in the past. And so the one ask would be to make it as amazing as possible with that scenario for those people who might be flying in as well.
Yeah, nobody's turned away from graduation. Those 6 tickets, all 6 people can't fit in the PAC, but we always provide overflow in the cafeteria. It's live streamed right in there, as well as live streamed out to YouTube. So no family members are turned away, and then anybody who's in the building with the new processional idea of going to the Wellness Center, then that creates a space where, again, all 6 ticket holders could meet with the graduate following the ceremony in that large space. So I think that we have that covered on both for the ceremony as well as following the ceremony.
Thank you.
And that's something that, to Matt's point, never really existed before. 1 inch per hour might be a little generous for moving that hallway, but we've already come out. And again, this was, to give them credit, this was really a conversation with a group of parents who came in. We spent a lot of time talking about what happens afterwards if it's in the PAC, and that's where that idea came from.
Great.
So we think regardless, probably all future indoor graduations will now feature that processional out to the Wellness Center. So it'll benefit whatever class is the next to graduate indoors.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good.
And it provides the community an opportunity to see the Wellness Center, because the majority of them have not.
Absolutely.
Right. For sure. So, and there was no date change, so there's really no vote on behalf of the board that has to take place. So assuming that there's no opposition, we can give Mr. Mello the go-ahead to share with this group of seniors. And again, if they have feedback or other ways in which they think we can improve this setting, we will certainly be receptive to hearing that. I know one of the things that we spoke about today was making sure that the processional passes the parent bleachers. So while they'll come down the stairs and down the sidewalk, they'll maybe come down to the middle of the parent bleachers and then straight down into the student seating area.
Sure. Nice.
So they're not cutting the corner and not walking past the bleachers, but instead processing right in front of the bleachers and then down to the seating area.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to refine the details.
It's important, you had mentioned, Matt, or you, Dr. Luff, the pathway. It will be provided, so kids don't sink. And
Yeah, so we'll extend this plastic flooring straight up to where the parent bleachers are.
Great.
And that'll provide a safe walkway for all students to get to the student seating area.
I still don't recommend high heels on that. I would recommend it on the turf.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean people won't go that route.
Yeah, the plastic flooring itself has little
Yeah, I
divots
know.
in it, so high heels are still not encouraged.
Sounds good.
Wedges are great.
Wedges are encouraged,
Yep.
whatever a wedge is.
Excellent.
Sneakers are better.
All right, any other questions, comments about graduation recommendation?
Thank you for
Yeah, really.
trying and
For innovating.
retrying and
Yeah.
re-looking and keeping an open mind, because I think that that's
We promised from the beginning to be open and receptive to feedback from parents, from students, from community members, and this is, after receiving all of that feedback, this is the best option that we were able to come up with, and we think that parents will be happy with it. We think our students will be happy with it, and I think it'll be a memorable day for everyone.
Yeah, once this occurs, archive the whole idea so
Yep.
that in the future, when
Yep.
we replace it 10, 15 years in the future.
Maybe
you
this
have
will
it.
be the new standard. Maybe it'll be so good that this is where they want graduation.
Could very well
I have
be.
to tell you, the
It
thought
could very
actually
well be.
crossed my
Yeah.
mind, because when I saw that view from Ms. Decca's office, I was quite impressed, actually.
So you want the luxury suite.
I might pay for that, actually, to pay it forward for,
I can tell you one
years.
thing. It'll be,
Yeah,
You have a great view up here.
it's beautiful.
I can promise
It's
one
beautiful.
thing, the student seating area will probably be 20 to 30 degrees cooler than it would be out on the
There
turf.
is truth
Right.
to that. Yeah.
Yes, and I just want to say that I think that this is a beautiful example of how, a challenge can really benefit us in the future, and we can come up with innovative ideas that now is going to better all of our graduations going forward. So, very exciting.
Just one other quick comment. I do want to note that these pictures are obviously what's available on Google Earth. So you can see our lovely football field lines in this picture, as well as the outline of the baseball fence. As I know Mr. Spittle has shared before, his buildings and ground staff spent nearly a month preparing for graduation. So now a majority of their efforts will be placed on this location, on this field. There'll obviously be no striping. This is probably the best time of year for this field in terms of late spring. Grass will all be grown in. There'll be no lines. There'll be no brown spots. There'll be no dead spots. So I know that our buildings and ground staff will take exceptional care of this area of the campus leading up to graduation to make it as pristine as possible for the actual ceremony.
be
So
great.
I don't want anyone to
Gonna
look
be
at the
great.
picture and think that they're going to graduate on the 20-yard line. I guess that would happen on the turf anyway, but or that big bald spot will be there. Not that there's anything wrong with bald spots, but they will not see the solar panels from this angle. See, look, no solar panels. Looking away. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, while I'm here, while I'm lost.
Take care, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I do want to, oops. So, also on our agenda, I broke it. Go back to what? It's like I never used a computer before. I got it, Dan. I got it.
He is ready.
I saw you ready to pounce.
You sure? Oh, do you?
Agreed. I second that.
Now it's broken.
Does not.
All right.
Beautiful blue.
There it is. It just took a minute. All right, so I'll invite up Dr. Chan to talk a little bit about the upcoming budget. I have said not to do our entire presentation because that would be the third time in which we're seeing this presentation. But just to really, it's just that mode's not going to work, huh? Just to talk through, answer any questions. I know our line-by-line budget is now available online, so if there's any questions about that, obviously we have well over a month before the budget vote, so Dr. Chen would be willing to answer any questions that any community members or board members have regarding that line-by-line budget. But this is sort of just a quick opportunity to answer any questions. We won't go through every slide, but if you have anything that you want to highlight, Grace would be willing to do that. So I'll turn it over to her, and we'll get started. Thank you.
It's hard to do any presentation after that fourth grade. This slide and the video of me speaking about it the last 2 times is online, so I'm really not going to go over this. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about the process of how I created the budget so that you're familiar with what goes into this. I'm going to do this very high level, and then towards the end I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of what I had to do here in Putnam Valley for this budget. Basically, in my entire career, I presented in a way that I started from the Excel, and what I did is it's one big worksheet, but there's a lot of tabs on the bottom. Basically, you start with going to the payroll department and asking her to move everyone to the next step and any column and things that they are due contractually. Then I take all those salaries, and then I have to look at non-contractual salaries, and I have to add all that in. I do have a tab called All Units, which the superintendent and I can go in at any time, filter and see exactly who is paid by name in every particular code. Then that's all consolidated, and then I have to bring it into what I call the input sheet. Before I get to the input sheet, we have individual meetings with all the department heads, which they will give to us their intended wish list for the budget. And even though it's just one number on a line, I produce a binder for the superintendent and for myself and the treasurer to follow year by year. What we do is we ask them to let me have all the backup that comes to that one number, so that if the board or anyone in the public wants to understand what's in that code, I turn the page and it's right there, like there's the total with all the backup. Additionally, I use that for next year when the department may ask me for money, and I might go back to that and say, I thought I gave you this. And then if they tell me it's not enough, then it helps me budget for the following year. And then I produce what you call the presentation, which is what you see, the line by line now. I actually had to type in everything. This is my first year doing it here for Putnam Valley. So then in the earlier tabs, I start with the tax cap, because all those numbers will filter into me balancing the budget between the revenue and the expenses. So when I'm finished with the whole budget, the bottom line is one number, and it goes on the top of a revenue sheet, and on that revenue sheet I have to make sure that I have enough revenues from different pockets in order to balance the budget. So most of my spreadsheets fall into each other. So if I make one change somewhere, it'll accumulate and fix everything to the end. I do check everything though. I just wanted to tell you, when I came to Putnam Valley, the budget obviously is done very differently than the way I'm presenting it. It was also excellent. It's just a different way of presenting it. I like the way I'm doing it because in my entire career I did it this way, so it's easier for me when the superintendent asks me, where did this number come from? I know exactly how I put it into the budget. So I had to separate first the non-contractual salaries, the contractual salaries, and I had to separate anything that's non-salary related. When I looked at everything, I decided to consolidate. I asked for permission first, and I was allowed to consolidate some codes. Here are some of the reasons that I was consolidating and changing codes. So first, I just want to explain to you that the state provides a standardized expenditure code for reporting everything on the ST3, and the ST3 is how we end up getting our state aid money. So generally, the first 4 digits are what we call the function code. The next 3 digits are what we call the object codes. The next 2 digits are the location, and the last 4 is district determined. for our district, anything that ends in a 9900 on that line by line means it's a contractual salary that we're paying. So we might pay other salaries to people that they're doing extra work, stipends, that's not contractual. And I had to look at the list of that pile and try to consolidate them again so that we have less lines in the budget. Some of the reasons I reclassified is that salaries for the staff are paid on their object code, and that will determine if they are ERS or TRS retirement system. And some of them were incorrect the way I saw them, so I put everybody where they belong instead of making any adjustments later. So from the onset, they are now in their correct retirement system. Teachers classified according to the way ST3 is asking me to report it to them. So by grade levels, they want to know teachers from K to 3, 4 by itself, grade 5 to 6, 7 and 8, and then 9 to 12. So I reclassified it so that all the expenses on the line by line are presented that way so that we could easily filter all those numbers into the ST3. Another area that I changed is the special education. The function codes are specifically reclassified because these amounts are used in a formula to calculate the maintenance of effort, and that helps determine the state aid. So now we have a line with the director of the PPS, the Pupil Personnel Services, and the supervisor of special ed are coded to a special ed line because the special ed gets additional state aid. Transportation code is another area where I reclassified mainly because I wanted to group all transportation in one area so when we go to ST3, we don't lose track of any of them. Previously, there was a athletics transportation line that was coded to athletics. So I recoded it to bring it down to transportation, so we get enough aid from the transportation. I also streamlined by abolishing and consolidating similar expenses for the purpose that they used the money for. And this will help reduce the amount of budget transfer that we would need in the future. I isolated expense-driven codes like textbook code, library code, software code, and computer code. We get a certain amount of money per student, and as long as we spend that, we will get that amount of state aid. So previously, it was hidden among other expenses. Now I've isolated so that the business office can monitor these expenses and make sure it's completely spent out by the end of the year. Streamlining codes makes it obvious also when you're missing something. For example, if there's something that the high school has an expense and the middle school, and suddenly I'll see, oh no, there's nothing for elementary school. And you'll see it on the line by line. It looks very methodical that way. I report the high school, then the middle school, and then the elementary school. And this is the first year that I did this reclassification. It was very hard because I had to do a whole mapping series to make sure that I don't lose any of the codes, and at the end of the day, all the codes have to still equal the bottom line budget. But I'll be happy to provide anybody information if they pick anything that they want to see, that because I have to go back to my mapping code and see how many lines went into that in order to reclassify it. For that reason, this year you will see some higher variances in some code lines. Mm-hmm. And you may see 0 from last year, and then this year you see a number. It's really because I reclassified it from where it was reported in the last year. And the only other thing I need to tell you about, which is that the state did not come out with their budget for us yet, so they're late. And because of that, we're still living with the January numbers that I got. We're not sure, they're supposed to go back into session on Tuesday, but whenever we get our final numbers, the legislative budget, we will look at the budget as a whole again. We will have to make whatever adjustments that we need between the revenue lines in order to make sure that our budget still, revenue still equals the expenses.
Quick question, Dr. Chan.
Yes.
If the state is very late, which they're known to do, you know, the past years, getting the budget settled sometimes beginning of June. We vote on the budget, it passes, but the state doesn't give us what we thought they would. They give us less. How do we make up that difference? Do we do a ban, or how would it work?
No, so we do have reserves
Okay.
that I could use, the unallocated reserves, which I use some of it now in order to balance the budget. But if we find that we need more money because the state didn't give us enough, then that's the first place I would go to.
Okay, so the reserves would be there as a backup for that. That's important to know. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's essentially why those reserves are there.
Yes, I was just
Exactly.
about
If
to
the
say that, yeah.
unexpected were to happen, you need to have somewhere to reach in and grab the money to balance your budget. So that's
Absolutely.
one of the reasons why those unrestricted reserves, why we're allowed to maintain those.
Back in the early 90s, I lived through, I was over at the middle school at the time, and Cuomo, Governor, the original Governor Cuomo, not the past, the one who passed away was Mario Cuomo, decided to give the district half of the money allocated and never gave us the second half.
Well, his son tried the same move 5 years ago,
Yeah,
where
I
they
remember.
threatened to withhold the second half
Yeah.
of our state aid payments halfway through the year after the district had already allocated those funds to be spent.
We actually, I mean, a lot of people went to part-time for that year because the reserves were negligible. That was way back in the 90s.
As Dr. Luff said, the line by line is already posted. I'm not going to go through the 11 pages of it, but I did highlight a little bit just to see if I could let you know some things, the reasons why the percentages went up so high. One in particular, I had an in-service teaching summer work, and these descriptions have been changed to match what the state gives us. You don't have to use those descriptions, but I like using them because I know exactly what that code represents, because I have been using the state descriptions most of my career. I had reclassified, that's non-contractual codes. I reclassified it, and it turns out that it's sticking out now that last year there was nothing, but there really was something. It was just hidden in other lines. And then now this year there's 89,000 in, but there's a reason for that. And if anyone wants to know specifically where it was, I'll go back to my mapping and find it. I'm not creating anything that wasn't already there, just reclassifying what line is being presented. We did have some new hires that we put into the budget, so you might see some budget-to-budget increase on those lines. Again, I'm talking about the Special Education Director of PPS and the Supervisor of the Special Education. It was never used, that code for the 2250, which is special education, and I put their salaries in there.
Grace, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why is it that on page 5, the grade bands for the teaching regular school under the instructional portion of the budget, why is it that the grade bands are delineated K to 3 and then 4 and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12? Is there a specific reason why those grade bands are designated in those groupings?
Well, the ST3 asks us to report the teachers' salaries by those categories.
By those grade bands?
Yes.
Very interesting.
And so I'm trying to keep it streamlined, because when we put all those numbers in, we actually take them expense from the budget, and now it'll go directly to those lines. It makes it much easier for the treasurer to fill out the ST3 and get it in on time.
Thank you.
And Dr. Chan, when you have a position, for example, the health teacher in the high school that may also teach at the middle school, how do you divide that up?
So if there is actually a division, then I would divide it up by the location of that teacher.
0.6
So
or
I might
0.4.
see somebody, when I go to my all units tab, being paid in 2 separate codes, because part of their salary is
Right.
for the middle school and part is for the high school.
Right.
Those,
And that's delineated by the amount of time that they're in each building?
well, I usually just ask the payroll person, because she's the one who's paying them.
Okay.
It's broken up by FTE, so the
By
number
FTE,
of classes
right, so-
they teach in each building, so
Right.
0.6,
0.6 or
0.4.
0.4, yeah, exactly. Okay.
And sometimes you might have floaters, and then I would just put it in a district-wide code. I know that the special education went up. There's a line in there that it really was a number that was given to me by Melissa, and her secretary, because they know more of what's happening next year in special education. So when we had the meeting with them and they gave me their numbers, they have backups to why these numbers are higher than they were last year. So again, on page 7 on the top, we have a new E&L position so that you'll see an increase on the budget to budget. Next year, I think we're going to be buying 2 buses, so I had to put money in the equipment code because this year when Dave came to me and asked for a bus, I immediately looked at the 24-25 budget and there was no 200 code, which is the only code you can use to buy equipment. So I have to put that in next year. So there was nothing in equipment code line, and there's something in his line this year because he plans to buy 2 buses. I think they're $83,000 each.
Yeah. Not electric.
Right. No.
No,
Not
that's
that
good.
no, it's not
That's good.
electric. I don't think we have the infrastructure yet.
We're never going to go electric.
You might see a little bit of increase in the athletics. I know that we're adding flag football, so that changes some of those numbers.
Yeah, I saw the athletics.
Okay. The other thing is on the last page, and then I'm finished, and then Dr. Love can say something. On the last page, when I went into the debt service, like for instance, the bond anticipation note for the principal part and the interest part have gone away, so you won't see a number there. The other thing is that you'll notice that when we're paying bonds off over the years, we pay more interest in the beginning and less principal. And then it starts to reverse.
It reverses,
So
yeah.
now you'll see, and you might ask me, why is there so much principal on the bond? Because it's a whole schedule that the fiscal advisor produces for us to pay off the bonds.
Yeah, the
So
interest
you'll see
drops.
that flip coming
Yeah.
up. And I'm finished. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Grace.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace.
Yeah, thank you.
Hold on. I have a question. Joe had asked about the federal funding, so I just want to, if you could go over that. The federal funding we may receive, what is impact, if any, is going to occur?
The federal funding, you mean for the pre-K?
No, for
Title funds.
Title funds, yeah.
Well, we're not sure what's going to happen yet, but I believe you had asked us how much money that was, and we had to just list what that possibility is.
I think it's about 100,000-ish.
Yeah,
if I
but
remember.
when I do the budget, especially a year like this year, not knowing what's going to happen to those federal funding, I put all the salaries of those people in the budget so that we can make sure that we can continue and pay those people to let those programs go on.
Okay, thank you. And in the presentation, can you just point again to pre-K, just so we could see?
Oh, yes.
While Grace pulls that up, that's another reason why we need to have a padding and a cushion of reserves. Because if title funds don't come in, now that those positions are being placed into the general fund to ensure that they are there so that we can make sure our students have the services they need, salaries are the biggest part of our budget, right? And so it's really important to have that cushion there just in case things like this with the federal government, what's happening right now, happen. So kudos to the district for having that available.
So the 4th column, that shows that it's the less of the full-day pre-K. The money there is $410,400, according to the executive budget.
Thank you.
So I do want to commend Dr. Chan on, I looked back to last year, and the line-by-line budget was just about 20 pages. I know there was a tremendous amount of work that went into this year's line-by-line budget, and really the intentions are as follows. One, we want to make it easy to use. So it's very quick and easy to understand and navigate through this process. That being said, if I were to go back to last year's budget and pull up one single budget line, she could tell me where it was consolidated to and where that number now lives, no matter how big or small that number was. So I know she has a crosswalk for everything from last year's budget, the old model, to the new one. Now, obviously, you see deviations in budget codes that, because of all of these changes that were made, But after next year, then it'll be seamless because you'll continue to see everything coded in the same way. So certainly streamline and ease of use. The next is transparency and accuracy. All right, we want to make sure that money is budgeted and allocated in the line in which it's expended. And that's so for transparency purposes, so the community understands exactly what money is going where. The less budget transfers we do, the more transparent we are. So we're not taking money from one code and moving it to another. Everybody understands and knows where things are budgeted and where they should be spent. And the last piece is maximizing our state aid. We get differing levels of state aid for things like transportation and special education costs. So to ensure that everything is budgeted accordingly, maximizes the amount of aid the district receives back from New York State. And I think that Grace was able to accomplish all of those things this first year, and that this model will serve us well as we continue to move forward in future years.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Grace. Really great job.
I love it. I mean, it's so easy to understand.
It is so easy to understand.
I love it. Some of the things, which I think you can expect to get some questions about, like the verbiage that I asked you. Some things aren't completely easy to understand, but I would say for the most part, this is like, it's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
My OCD loves it.
I wanted to just ask a question so that the community knows the process for budgeting. Budgeting starts usually December, January, looking at those numbers. I'd like some clarity on the process that we use to be able to look at last year's budget, what was allocated and what was actually spent, and how that informs the decisions for the coming year's budget. There are significant changes here, you already mentioned, because we moved money into code so that it could be clearer and more transparent for our community, which I think is fantastic. But also looking at codes that perhaps had too much money allocated and then were moved into a different code perhaps because there was not enough money allocated. Like, what does that process look like, just so that the community knows?
During the meetings that we have with the individual departments, they first come to me with their wish list, and then before I cut or add to it, I would look at the audited statements from when we just finished the budget from 23-24. And then I would make sure, sometimes I wasn't here, so I don't know what happened. I would go to them and ask them what happened, why did you spend this? And then with their explanation, I write notes on the side, and I was like, okay, well, next year you don't want to budget so much in this code because you said you moved it so that you can do something else. I definitely look at 3 years at the same time when I'm budgeting.
Okay.
Because you have to know that just because something didn't happen in the past doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the future. And I work with the clerical staff very closely, and they're excellent. For example, the IB, I went back 3 years to say, okay, where are all your IB expenses and what do I expect it to be next year? And even Jackie and Dr. Luff and I decided that for the future, when we have things that affect the whole district, we're going to list all of the costs, and then we'll divide it to 3 columns, like who's paying for it? Is this the district? Is this the high school? Is this the middle school? And then we would have all those backups, and then I would put it on the budget line. And again, when you ask me as a board member or the taxpayer, how did I get this budget line? All I have to do is turn the page from my binder, and I know where it is. It's just an easier way to follow. I mean, I love electronics, but sometimes you need some hard copies.
Agreed. And just the last time that we were here, you had mentioned a significant list of savings that the district had engaged in, really creative and innovative ways to be frugal with our spending. Is there a way that we can get that list out to our community? Is that something we're working on?
Yeah, Dave, Grace, and myself had started working on the list, really looking to finalize the numbers that we're using. So many of them are estimates. It's hard to know exactly what something would have cost had we done something. So we're trying to find out a way to, we started looking at creating an infographic and then being able to be able to sort of defend and justify each of those numbers. So that's the work that's ongoing. Certainly we can make a bulleted list of all of those initiatives. We can attach that to the presentation and post it online as a first step, and then we'll look at more creative ways to share that information in the future.
Great, thank you. If people have questions about the line by line, they should contact Grace.
Yes, definitely give your information, contact to the district clerk and your question, and I will look it up and respond to you.
Perfect.
We should warn you that in our subcommittee meetings before this, we coined just Ask Grace. So if you see any social media comments that say hashtag Ask Grace,
Ask Grace.
So you
That
may
should be
get
an
more
email.
questions coming your way.
Actually, I think that if anyone asks questions, we'll put it online for everyone to see, so people don't have to ask the same question again.
We can create an FAQ document based on the questions that they ask Grace, and I think that sounds like a little bit of an email, just Ask Grace at putnamvalleyschools.org.
The line item budget is extremely important. I love that, we put the approved budget from the previous year so that people could compare, the increases right down the line, and that's very important for transparency. Appreciate it's online right now, and that's a great thing. Thank you.
Yes.
And if anyone goes to our pvcsd.org, over on the right side is the 25-26 budget election information, and within that link it's all this information that we presented in presentations and the line by line, so that's where all the detail is.
And in the same location, every previous year's budget with the same level of detail, including the line-by-line budget, is included for as many years as you want to go back. So, I think they call that transparency.
See, it goes back to 2010.
Okay. Any other questions for Grace? Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Dr.
Grace.
Chen.
Okay, so we're going to move to new business.
Resolved by the Putnam Valley Board of Education to adopt a tentative budget for the 2025-26 school year in the amount of $63,331,741.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes. Number 2, please.
I love that I get to do this. Resolve to accept the Universal Pre-Kindergarten UPK Program Bid RFP number 2025-2504 for 2025-26 from the YMCA of Central and Northern Westchester as per document number 172-25 attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
So, just to point out, this is very recently hot off the press. So we have our kickoff meeting we're scheduling, and lots of information will be coming available in the next few weeks. So to make sure everyone's aware of this opportunity that now exists. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and when I was reading over the YMCA contract, I was impressed that they said that especially that their early literacy was guided by the curriculum that was provided by the district. So it will be a seamless transition for those students, and I think that's really important. It's not like a separate standalone. This is over here, and then the rest of the elementary school. I like that connection. I was wondering whether, I know they're getting art and music, but not with our teachers, correct? They'll get it in their classroom?
Correct. So it's a standalone program. All of the programming will take place within that classroom.
Okay.
And ironically, the program they utilize for ELA is Scholastic. So that'll be a very smooth transition for our students from pre-K into K.
Nice.
They also incorporate foundations and Haggerty into the program as well.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Love it.
That's excellent.
Amazing.
I was wondering whether Margaret was going to have to drag these people along, 'cause that's good.
Yeah, just a plug to make sure we communicate with local daycare centers about this so that they can share this with the families that they serve if they're Putnam Valley students.
Yeah.
We have
All
to
in
vote.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry, aye.
Abstentions? The resolution passes. Okay, I'd like to open it up for public comment on any topic.
Sorry,
sorry, I should have said this before. On the pre-K, I want the board, when in reaching out to local daycares or what they consider pre-K, that we are sensitive to the fact that now we are possibly taking clients away from them.
That is true.
And some of them are people who live here in town, and it's their own business here in town. That we need to be aware that it could create a hardship for some of our local pre-Ks, and so I just want while it's great to celebrate it, at the same time, I remember it's that delicate balance of what's good, and I know it's going to be a lottery, so hopefully, the way the lottery will work will be as fair as it possibly can, but at the same time, we got to be cognizant of those issues.
That's a good point, Joe. Dr. Luff, what is the maximum enrollment that we can handle?
One in each class is a contract.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to recognize Joe's comments, and that's something that we've had conversations with our local businesses about. Right? It's never been our intention to take a business from them. It's always been our intentions to partner with them. And unfortunately, the finances simply don't make sense, and I understand why it doesn't make sense for them. I wish there was no lottery. I wish I can advertise this to the kids that are not currently in pre-K services, because that's who really needs it. So I would love to reach into the homes of 4-year-olds who are not going to pre-K and not take any business away from our local partners, because those are the kids who most need the service. So I'm hopeful that at least many of those families who maybe can't afford traditional pre-K take advantage of this free opportunity and enter the lottery, and then hopefully get selected, so that we're not depriving our community-based organizations from the students that they're already serving. So I'm very cognizant of that. I know they are. We've had these conversations, but the money is made available. We also have parents that say, this money's made available for you. What are you doing with it? Yeah. So I think we're trying to find as close of a balance as we can. So to answer the question right now, the true answer is if you take $410,000 divided by $5,400 a student, which I didn't do in front of me, but I think it's 70 kids, 64 kids, something like that, would be the maximum number of students. We have no intention or capacity to serve that number. Right now, the maximum number of students we would consider, and this would be following our conversation with the Y, would be 2 classrooms of students. We very well may start with 1. So 1 classroom, 18 to 20 kids would likely be where we start, depending upon the number of applications we receive, as well as the Y's ability to service and to get another classroom up and running. The maximum number of classrooms we would consider in the very near future would be 2 classrooms.
So approximately, if both classrooms were filled?
It would be a maximum of 40 students.
40
that would
kids.
be it, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You had mentioned before about they can't do aftercare. So I think something that would be really amazing is to try and partner with our community and see how we can help support them to create a relationship to get these like after school students if people need before and after care, which I know you mentioned before, but I think that's a great way to involve and not take away business.
Right, so this program, again, would run in the middle of the day. It's not great hours for working parents. So many of those working parents would still rely on our community-based organizations for pre and post care. And hopefully those local businesses would continue to be able to provide that, and they would be able to charge parents for that service as well outside of the pre-K day.
But this would allow some parents to go back to work. Some parents who couldn't afford all day pre-K, a lot of, it's a big expenditure. If they have this lottery and then they have to pay for the before and after care, I mean, more parents can join the workforce. So you don't have so many.
Right. I think the hope is that the pool of students attending a daycare or early pre-K center and our pre-K program from the district would get larger, as opposed to displacing current students into another program, right? Like the goal is to reach more students. and not take away business from local daycares.
Exactly.
The goal is to get
Exactly.
more kids access to the programming available within our community, which includes our daycare centers. So I just want to make that clear from my part, from my comment before. I don't ever want one of our daycare providers to think that, we are, excited to take
competing
students
with
from
them.
their programming. No, the idea here is to be able to reach, to Dr. Luff's point, maybe families that were not able to financially have the means to be able to provide daycare for their children and go back to work. And now maybe this will help with that, so.
And we're looking into how we can service families where English might not be their primary language, as well as looking into possible partnerships with the county to provide special education services within these UPK facilities. So I know we have some questions out there to determine whether or not that would be feasible, and it would help us provide some early intervention services for our CPSE students,
Yes.
as well as some of our classified students coming into
That would be good.
Yes,
That would be
that is
excellent.
a really important
Yeah.
part. I know that we are also passionate about making sure that our CPSE kids get what they need, and it is really hard to do that when they are not in our system. And when they're in our system, it is so much easier to be able to get them what they need. There's just not enough providers out there right now. So that is a really promising aspect of this particular agreement, and I think that we should talk about it more often so that parents know that that's one of the perks for this.
Okay. Any other comments? Have you had your building level meeting?
Yes. So I was going to mention this, but Dr. Luff did. I'm not going to harp on it too long, but I do want to say that the steering committee meeting at the middle school recently with the IB, I'm sorry, what are their names? IB advisors or professionals that came in was enlightening. There were quite a few of us there, actually. I was really pleased with the parent turnout and the things that the parents had to say about their child's middle school experience as children have been going through a school that is, lobbying to become an IB school, was just tremendous. Everyone on that committee was excited to talk about the work happening at our middle school. And let's face it, middle school is not easy anywhere for anybody. And those of you who teach middle school and lead middle school, more power to you. Thank you so much for all you do. It was an enlightening experience to hear the experiences of others and that their children are really thriving at the middle school. And the IB, the people from the IB program were very pleased to know that in previous years, people like myself who were on the steering committee had a hand in creating some of the guiding documents that are used for the program, such as their academic honesty policy. Integrity policy, excuse me. And so that was a really wonderful experience. Yeah. Yep, and we also have the Community Reads Day coming up at the elementary school on May 19th. Super exciting. We had a great turnout last year. We're hoping that we have a great turnout this year. It's always so much fun.
I want to give a kudos to the middle school play.
Yes.
I don't know
It was
if anybody
great.
gave that yet. It was amazing. It was, some of these kids memorized like 400 lines.
Mhm.
And it was just really incredible. The caliber that they were able to act at, everything that they were able to memorize, all of the stage changes. It was really incredible that it was very long. It was like 3.5 hours, and these kids knew their lines. These kids knew when to move their props, the lights were going off and where to move them, and it was just like really impressive that they could do it for so long. Some of these kids are 11.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really amazing. Or 10
It was
even.
really great.
I
yeah.
agree.
Amazing.
And I loved that the high school students were also there to support the middle school students. It was so lovely to see that they're coming back and, kind of paying it forward. That was really, really nice to see as well. There were a lot of kids that worked behind the scenes in that show.
ton.
There had to be at least like 40 kids on that stage when they brought out all the kids who do the spotlight and who do the sound and who do the, you know, all the lighting and the prop changes and the costume changes and all of the things that go along with making that show come to life. It was just fantastic. And I love that we highlight them too, because they're not the ones on stage. So
Right. There were like 30 scene changes. I mean, those kids behind the scenes were working really hard. They did a great job.
Yeah.
Jeanette, Barbara, and myself were able to go to the dress rehearsal of the Recorder concert, which the enthusiasm and the joy on these young people's face is just so moving. Every time I go, it's like, you know, your heart gets bigger and you absorb it. I thought it was really cool. You know, they're learning, and you have to understand that. But the enthusiasm, it just carries you. And
But I also love
their love of it.
Mr. Derlin's, you know, he uses, okay, these teachers, students, you're going stage left, you're going stage, like he's using the terminology
Of concert performance,
of concert
yeah.
performance.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
talking to the second graders who were the audience about concert performance. And, you know, the second graders clapped appropriately. If they were clapping along with the music, it was actually in tune with the music. They were
great.
excited, and then always singing the school song. It was just, they were so funny. Anyway, it was great.
That was great.
It
I love that he did a little bit of everything. You know, he did some of the popular tunes,
Right.
and he had them do the traditional. And I also thought it was wonderful. I don't remember how they did it in the past, to be honest, but that he highlighted each class first.
Yes, he
And then
did.
brought them all together, and just come on, Eye of the Recorder. Like, that's got to be an epic thing going forward. Like, we got to do that every year. It was so great. And the colors, I heard a lot of good feedback about kids wearing color.
Yeah. Eye of the Tiger. I love that song.
Eye of the Recorder.
Eye of the Recorder.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
very sweet.
I want to thank again Ms. Ross and Ms. Bruno for your
Yes.
work on the science
Yes,
maker.
definitely.
I enjoyed it when it was at the elementary school and seeing all the kids and just being able to talk to each one of them today. It was a treat. So thank you for that. And
So great.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I love the variety from mummified fish to nuclear
Oh my
physics
God.
to.
I love that.
One thing, Brianna's my neighbor.
To ice cream. To ice
It was
cream.
just, you know, it's amazing to see. You know,
One thing
they're so
I was
young.
impressed with, when Barbara asked them to say something about their presentation, they didn't hesitate. They got up.
Not
They
at
kept
all.
Yeah, they
talking.
got-
thought
they
it
got
was very
there.
professional.
Amazing.
Right.
Yep.
They didn't
Yeah.
think about it. They just
No.
said it. So it was great. You
Yeah.
could tell they really enjoyed their projects. So thank you for the guidance behind that.
Mike Savvy. Yeah, they got right on that mic.
Absolutely.
Moron and all.
And they didn't necessarily even start with "my name is," right? Like they were doing it in an
Right.
ad lib
Yeah.
kind of, you know, way. So that was great.
Good.
Okay, upcoming meeting topics and presentations?
So we have an exciting next meeting as well, our April 22nd meeting, which is a Tuesday. Coincides with the BOCES budget and trustee vote. We'll have our tenure and retiree reception prior to the meeting, and then have the opportunity to recognize our retirees and confer tenure upon our newer teachers. So that should be a well-attended meeting on April 22nd. Our next meeting after that is May 6th, our final budget hearing, and then maybe the most important day of all, Tuesday, May 20th, our bond budget trustee and library vote. So I'm going to keep saying that. Hopefully people will hear me.
And congratulations on the yellow save the date cards.
Yeah,
Thought
that's
it was
great,
a
isn't it?
great idea. It really stuck out in the mailbox. I haven't heard, did anybody not get them?
I got two.
Does anyone have?
You got
theirs?
two?
My
No one
P.O.
has one,
box and
right?
also my
Show and
home
tell.
address, yeah.
So I
have
thought that
mine.
was a
Mine's
good
on my fridge.
idea. So, hopefully, people
So
will vote.
the April 22nd reception, that's at 6. What time is that? 6 o'clock, okay. I'll send you a message. Okay, thank you.
Of
We don't have
course you
anything
will,
else
Marie.
scheduled that night.
Maureen
right?
gets to schedule her own.
Okay. Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night.